So welcome everybody to the latest How They Do It In video series from Innovate Island. Today we've got the pleasure of being joined by Emerson John-Charles, who is a longtime friend and member of Innovate Island, despite not being on the island of Ireland. But he is on a different island today, and I'll let him explain that shortly. I'm conscious of where Emerson is. It's probably breakfast time as well, so I hope you got a chance to have breakfast before you started. It's always a pleasure to see you. It's always a pleasure to meet you in person at the ISO and the ISPIM events and so on. But I'm delighted that you're sharing the views of how they do it in Trinidad and Tobago today. So I'm not going to take up much time here. I just want to say thank you, Emerson. You're very welcome to be sharing your story with everybody on Innovate Island, and I will hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction, Charlie. And I said I have been a friend of Innovate Island for quite a while. Definitely seems like it could be more than 2 years. And I'm very pleased to give some information on innovation in the Caribbean and about innovation in Trinidad and Tobago, my country in particular. A little bit of background information on me. I know the running joke is that I am the Minister of Innovation in Trinidad and Tobago, but I try my best to harness that unofficial role. But in my country's ISO body, I'm the chair of the National Mirror Committee for Innovation. I'm the chair of the Innovation Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and ISO International Innovation Committee, where I met Charlie and others. I'm a standard developer, and I have my own consulting company called Innovatus Consulting. So a little bit of information on Trinidad and Tobago. As you'll soon see, we are not the typical Caribbean country. We are the most southern country in the space, and we're actually a twin island republic. So normally when I come on these calls, I am in Trinidad, and unfortunately for me, I'm in Tobago, which is the much more tourist part of the two countries, two islands. We say God is a Trini for two reasons. One, we are generally outside of the hurricane belt. So when the hurricanes start in West Africa and they come across, they always swing towards to the other Caribbean countries. And actually a lot of yachties come and they relax in Trinidad during the hurricane season. We're also very close to Venezuela, which we all know has a lot of has a destabilizing force around it with America's Armada. So that's really interesting to us. Of course, this whole region has a lot of oil and gas, as I will start talking about soon. And of course, I can't talk about the Caribbean without talking about some of the sand, sun, and sea, and some of the activities. I personally love to do a lot of hiking. We have quite a few mud volcanoes, which has a lot of health benefits for your skin. Most likely, the asphalt and pitch used to pave your roads came from Trinidad and Tobago. Pitch Lake, of course, you could also bathe and swim in it as well. And when it comes to wildlife, whether it's the leatherback turtles or the scarlet ibis, is a fantastic place to be. In terms of the scarlet ibis, when it's nesting season, the entire sky just turns red. It's just so many of them. So I hope one of you'll soon enough get to come here and experience it for yourself. Trinidad is a melting pot. Again, we are not the typical Caribbean country, which usually has maybe 99, 95%, even 99% of people of African descent. In Trinidad in particular, we are like 35, 45%. And we have people from East India, Europe, of course, all over the world. And you see it most definitely in our food. So the picture in the center there is called doubles. Most people have doubles, which is like a street food for breakfast, which is Indian inspired. And you have this thing on the right hand side called pilau, which is West African inspired. Of course, we are the land of music and carnival. if you come to a carnival season, it's 2 months, it's usually 2 months of parties and celebrations of all different types that ends with 2 days of intense, very intense street party. And of course, when it comes to music, we're the only country to create acoustic instrument in the 20th century. So getting to the economics and getting to the innovation of why we're here. Another thing that most people don't think of, us are surprised when they hear of us a Caribbean country, is that one of the most industrialized economies in the world. And we are part of the international global supply chain when it comes to petrochemicals. Just think of, as I spoke of Venezuela, why is Trump in Venezuela? Because in part, of course, the official narrative is something else, but we know it's in part because of oil. And right next to Venezuela, Guyana just found oil, and they are actually the fastest growing economy in the world right now because of so many oil reserves. So our next reason for us to say why God is a Trinity, because we were placed where we are at. But in Trinidad, even though Guyana just found oil and Venezuela has the world's largest reserves in oil, Trinidad and Tobago is on the other end of that scale. We have been doing this for over 100 years, and 80% of our economy is dependent on the energy sector, and it's going to end very soon. We are already seeing supply constraints, which is why we're hoping to do a deal with Venezuela to get some of their oil and their gas to process for them. But all that is on hand. So innovation and diversifying the economy is of absolute critical need, which is why I'm so passionate about it for my country. And we have quite a few inventors and innovators who have created many inventors. So the picture in the center, that's the gentleman, Winston Simon. He developed the steel pan, which, I don't know if you ever heard of steel pan music. You may have heard of it and not seen it, but it's all over the world. It's a major industry. On the right-hand side, I know you see those tube men you see all over the world. It's actually a Trinidadian who developed that. His name was Peter Minchell. And that right now, based on, generates $8.288 billion US every single year right now, and expected to continue growing. That actually, the balloon man is turned after a local carnival character called Tam Tam. And then we have the gentleman on the left-hand side, Ronald Defoe. He developed a patent, and Toyota Corporation actually spoke to him about, just a second, please. Are you hearing me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, he developed the patent that Toyota wanted to license from him. That was like in 2010, 2013, somewhere around there. But we have a problem. None of these men generated any money from the inventions and that they created, and the billions and billions of dollars that have been created over the past few years. Not one. And that is why I said the Caribbean, and that's because of the infrastructural issues we have when it comes to innovation in the Caribbean. So if you look at the Caribbean at a glance, a report was just completed by a regional body called the Carib Equity, which was funded by Startup Genome and the IDB, Inter-American Development Bank. And they ranked the maturity of an ecosystem, startup ecosystem, on 4 levels: activation, globalization, attraction, and integration. I don't know if you know where Ireland is in these 4 areas. Does anyone know?
No.
Okay.
A lot of shaking heads.
Okay. Well, this is something, of course, it was very useful information for me in terms of knowing where we are at. But unfortunately for the Caribbean, all Caribbean countries are on stage 1, which is the activation stage, which of course makes sense seeing that we have such a history of of inventors having difficulty or being unable to capture the value of what they have created. And what does that mean? Just to go into more detail. So if you're in activation stage, which means you have limited startup experience, lower startup output, and challenges in terms of people being unable to access resources and the support to navigate local and international innovation ecosystems. So this is where we are at. And why is this important? I know I'm speaking to the choir, talking about the Nobel Prize in economics. Prove the real source of economic growth. Besides for Trinidad and Tobago, where we have 20 to 10 years of declining oil and gas production, for the Caribbean on a whole, that's based on tourism, they also are seeing a contraction in their usual form of income. And that's because due to climate change, the intensity of the hurricanes has been doubling and tripling. I don't know if any of you all saw the recent news of the devastation that happened in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. So we definitely have to change from sun, sand, sea, and fun to technology and innovation. And even, as I said, all Caribbean countries are in stage 1, which is the activation stage. But the report went even more granular, where it broke the activation stage into 4 phases of its own. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4. No Caribbean country was in phase 4 of early activation, none. Only 4 were in the developing stage, and that's my country of Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic. It's very interesting to me that when you look at the Global Innovation Index, only those 4 countries even have a presence there. The other countries are way behind nascent awareness, so you can imagine the difficulties their entrepreneurs, especially their tech entrepreneurs, face in terms of making change. But what I must say, out of the 4 countries I mentioned, Jamaica in particular stands out, but Jamaica and Barbados stand out a lot to me. You know, they're on their governmental level, they have a lot of support for innovation, like innovation policies and things of that nature. So getting into Trinidad and Tobago, now we have been declining oil and gas for the last 10, 20 years. We have also been declining on several of the major innovation metrics. So on the Global Innovation Index, we have been falling consistently from 2008 to now. So we had a high of being 65th in the world in 2008. 5 years later, 2013, we dropped to 81st. 5 years later, we dropped to 96. 5 years later, we dropped to 102, and we are now 114 in the world. In our defense, I would say that we really are not performing that badly, but we're also not purposefully changing data. So it could be reflected on the Global Innovation Index. But if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. We all know that old adage. United Nations has the Readiness for Frontier Technologies Index that just came out. We already fallen on that for the last few years. When we look at the amount of patents, I don't know how many patents you register every year in Ireland. But I see in Singapore, it's thousands every year. In China, it's hundreds of thousands every year. We won't even talk about Jamaica. If the average is just 1 for Trinidad, you see we really, really are in dire straits. And, you know, they said each country should aim to have invest in R&D at least 3% of GDP. We are 0.05%, not even 0.5% in R&D. And our economy, and the sad thing is that we had the money in abundance over the last few decades, where we could have created a technology and innovation-driven economy, and we did not. So that should have changed. So this is the last metric I'm going to speak about in terms of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is the Harvard's Atlas of Economic Complexity. And that measures the amount of productive knowledge in the economy. So you're seeing 2 lines on this graph, one from Trinidad, one for for Jamaica. It starts from 1995. And again, we have been a constant decline from 1995. I had to juxtapose it against Jamaica's performance because you see, in 1995, they were 105, and they intentionally decided to do something about that. And you see the rise where they surpassed us somewhere in 2008 and have stayed above us consistently from since then. And when I'm going to talk about one of our local entrepreneurs, who's a global player, he really catapulted on the world stage when he left Trinidad and he went to Jamaica. But we'll touch on that soon. So the IDB funded a report that in 2014, some of these weaknesses are mirrored again in the recent Carib Equity report that highlights that creates a summary of our ecosystem's weaknesses. We already know we have a suboptimal investments in R&D. And that is something that there are few companies are usefully changing that. Without much official government support, mind you. Definitely insufficient collaboration between the ecosystem players, with the ecosystem, with ecosystem players where they are more likely to compete with each other than collaborate. Of course, the government, we had our first national innovation policy in 2015. Unfortunately, government changed, it was scrapped, another one was created, that was scrapped, and none of it was, no part of it was ever implemented. We have the weak innovation readiness of firms. For me personally, I'm hoping the ISO 56001 will be harnessed by many firms and will make a change. And definitely any research that we have going on is not really applied research. Our university professors are very much focused on sometimes research for research's sake. But we do have some bright spots. So we had the largest investment fund in, I think, in the Caribbean's history that just ended. It's called Shaping. It was called Shaping the Future of Innovation. US $10 million program. Its aim was to improve the innovation ecosystem, increase the innovation capabilities of various firms, and to really help diversify and create a knowledge-driven economy. So that just ended. The performance of it is, at least when we look at the metrics, we know we have been following all the various metrics. The hope is that in a few years, we will see a reversal, but that remains to be seen. Even though we have low research, as I said, we had low research in the country, we have the Cocoa Research Center that was established more than 100 years ago. And actually, globally, it is recognized as a major source of research, but I think it's over 80% of their funding comes from the top cocoa and chocolate companies in the world. And it seems that even though it's located here, it really benefits all those foreign companies. And it's a bit sad that, of course, those international companies recognize and understand the value of the research that has been done, continues to be done, and as world class. They only created a chocolate factory a few years ago, because this falls under one of the universities. And that's the first time that the university actually had some independent income being generated. So that is why they really are excited for the AI Innovation Center that was launched only last month, which has an explicit focus on income generation. And of course, we know AI is taking the world by storm. It's the first in the Caribbean. It's actually supposed to be one of 4 in the Caribbean. I don't know where the others will be launched, but that will be in a few years' time. So it focuses on 4 areas, as you see in there. Of course, generative AI, agriculture, 9 different areas. So I'm very excited for that and getting involved with that. So we have some bright spots within the space to give us a little bit of hope. And to the bottom in yellow there, you see in there the Economic Development Advisory Board. That was the state agency that was responsible for innovation and created the first national innovation policy. As I said, party politics got involved, policies were scrapped, and actually the entire organization was scrapped. But we just had general elections earlier this year, and this new government is bringing back Economic Development Advisory Board. So I'm expecting the National Innovation Policy will be back, and some of the recommendations that they had before, such as creating a National Innovation Center, centers of excellence, and things of the like. And of course, I am going to push that, of course, they focus on the ISO 56001. We really start to create some coordination and management, because that's one of the problems with Trinidad. We don't have anyone who's responsible for strategically managing and coordinating our ecosystem, which allows a lot of entrepreneurs to struggle and fall by the wayside. But as I said, despite all of these challenges that we've had, we have quite a few standouts. And if anyone asks me what was the year I saw innovation start to change in Trinidad, I would say that would be 2017. And because 2017 is the same year that this company WePay got launched, and the same year that this large mature company called Ramps Logistics launches R&D department. It's coincidence that these things happen simultaneously. And WePay is really interesting. He started in a rural part of the country, and he was struggling in Trinidad for a while. And then he went to Jamaica. And as soon as he went to Jamaica, he just exploded. He went to Ghana. He has his companies in Latin America. And actually, 2 years ago, he bought another software company in Florida, which I presume would have cost him millions of US dollars, which shows the type of revenue that he's generating and the type of value that he's creating, not just regionally, but on the international stage. And he just expanded with a new product, and he's making, he has a recent agreement with some of the biggest remittance companies in the world. But WePay had to have that internal strength and organization and grit to work with, expand its business despite the inherent weaknesses that we have within our country. Ramps Logistics in particular, I love them. They are another company that is taking market share away in America and certain other countries through their AI app. So everyone is talking about generative AI and ChatGPT since 2022. He launched R&D department for AI and other things in 2017. So you already see that future foresight and vision that the leader has, his name is Sean Rampasad. So he has been shortlisted for international break and bulk international awards, but more importantly, he's been gaining and taking market share. I think in the local customs brokerage space, his app, his solution now manages, I think, over 90% of all the processes when it comes to importing and exporting of goods. So he really is significant, and he's generating millions and millions in US dollars in value. Another thing that stood out to me is that he just promoted a 30-year-old person as a vice president within his company. And I don't know if that is the norm in Europe, but that's definitely not the norm in the Caribbean. They many times say you have to wait till you're 40 or 50 to reach such senior positions, but this gentleman is a visionary, and I actually got to have a detailed conversations with the owner, and just my initial analysis, he has a lot of the elements of innovation management system in line with the ISO 56001. And that's just was him just trying to grow and thrive with his business. Maybe he has certain things he may have to formalize, but he definitely has it. So he is actually, when I speak to a lot of persons, I use him as an example like this. They need to mirror him, and if you want to be like him, go to the International Innovation Standard. And this gentleman in the center here, Mr. Ansel Bagwandine, a major inventor, major innovator. He's been winning international innovation awards and competitions, and we don't want him to go the way of our previous inventors who great minds but captured no value. So he's getting a lot of support informally and networking, and he's motivated by these other success stories to make a change for Trinidad and Tobago. So, and that's why I said in my presentation, it's a tale of perseverance despite our disadvantages. So that is the quick end of my presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want me to go over any certain aspects of it, I will do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Emerson. Yeah, that was really fascinating, because it's a perspective we don't quite often, or usually don't hear when you have someone from a country talking about innovation in the country, because it's always a positive thing and it's all the good stuff, and nobody kind of highlights the problems and the challenges that have been through. So I know there's hands up already, which I'll come on to, but one of the things interesting, we don't need to discuss it now, but really interesting was the difference between the inventor and the innovator. And there's a whole discussion there about, well, you know, the inventor of the steel drum and so on, but was the innovator the person that commercialized it, or is it a combination of the two that's innovation? I'm not looking to answer that question now, but it's that one that's always a debate between, there's a drive to innovation, to invention, but innovation is where the difference actually happens. So maybe we'll come back to that if we get chance, or another day. But Catherine, you have a hand up.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emerson. And firstly, let us all say that if you need any help, you know, we'll wait for between hurricane season and other geopolitical times, but, you know, bags are always packed. I suppose the general question is, what is the political and economic culture and appetite for this? You know, ease of doing business, strong enterprise policies to facilitate and incentivize innovation. Is that so? I hear and you say, you know, you need to innovate away from, you know, oil and gas, but the question is, what's the strategic direction pointing to?
Yeah, so well, in terms of ease of doing business, that is something our business chambers always complain about. That it's difficult. If you want to register a company, open up a bank account, it's like pulling teeth. I'm trying to do so right now for a particular venture, and it really is difficult. The government, the new government, they have a particular interest in innovation. They actually launched a ministry of artificial intelligence. Well, it's public administration and AI. So they have a different focus. But despite that rebranding of that particular ministry and the focus, the mere fact that they are bringing back that Economic Development Advisory Board, and to which I know what means they're going to create the innovation policy, which means we're going to launch a national innovation agency to strategically manage and coordinate the ecosystem. I feel very positive that things will be changing, and they have no choice. The government says again and again and again, the days of oil and gas are over. And even though they're saying it, a lot of people don't seem to, a lot of people are in denial, it seems. They don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
Because remember, God is a Trini, as they say. We don't ever have to worry about anything. But no, we are in crisis mode, and that urgency hasn't been hit. But we are seeing where even the previous political administration, they actually said that there were only 10 years left, and the former prime minister made statements that, like, if we didn't get the particular oil and gas deal with Venezuela, he said, "Oh, cuckoo cook," which means that we will be in dire straits. A local term to mean that. And of course, America said, no, we can't do that deal, and now we have what's going on now. So So it's one of concern, but of optimism for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks very much. Eric?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there for a second. Very interesting. Thank you very much. I was more curious. One of the your slide you mentioned like there's a new election and new government of that will be put in place possibly, and that they will reinstate an innovation policy or agency. My question was around like what was on the agenda for innovation before it was cut, or before it was, if there was one, and why was it closed?
So the innovation policy was first national innovation policy in the history of our country was created in 2015, and as soon as it was approved by cabinet, there was a general election, the government changed, and a new government. That was the first hindrance to the innovation policy, and then that policy said, okay, we're going to scrap this and we want to do it over. And when they did it over and they got it approved, the state agency that was responsible for implementing it was dissolved. So yes, we had a national innovation policy, but no, that's why no part of it was party politics type of thing occurred, unfortunately. But because I worked on the national innovation policy a few years ago, I got intimate details of what it has, but the average person in the country had not a clue. Okay. But it included things like, as I said, creating a national innovation agency, creating tax incentives for firms that want to invest in applied research and development. It spoke about strengthening the capacity of our universities to really not just do research, but do research that creates economic benefits. As I said, like the Cocoa Research Center has been there for over 100 years, and it's only recently it actually wasn't just doing research, but actually started engaging in commercial activities. So it had a lot of things like that in it.
Okay, thanks, Emerson.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. Justin?
Emerson, amazing presentation. I've got kind of an open question for you. I'd love your thoughts. I often think that here we have tech, and tech is great, but I think it actually suppresses innovation it's a foreign entity or an outside entity brought in, but I think it suppresses innovation within the natural economy. It's good and bad at the same time. And it sounds like for you, tourism and petro are the same. They're these elephants in the room. And to what extent are they suppressing a natural level of innovation and hustle and energy? And what are your thoughts on how you start to break that cycle? It's a tough question, but I think for us, tech is suppressing a natural innovation within our economy. And what are your thoughts on how it's affecting you guys?
Well, for us, definitely, especially from Trinidad's perspective and the energy sector, we all admit that we've been suffering from Dutch disease. It's so easy to generate money from oil and gas that we say, we could subsidize every other part of the economy and don't really push to support them and make them competitive. You know, if those parts of the economy are not doing well, it doesn't matter. The oil prices just went up because Saudi Arabia had some issue or some war was launched, and we will be good. So that has held us back in more ways than one. But we are in crisis mode. Those days are over. Those days are never, ever coming back. We just don't have the supply. In the tourists for other Caribbean countries where there's largely tourism sector, they also, because of climate change with rising water levels, if it continues to go unabated, some Caribbean countries may not even exist or may be very small. with the hurricane season, the intensity and the devastation that it creates, that will that increases the odds of people not coming to the Caribbean to holiday anymore. So we have no choice, and that, because of those things, we are seeing, well, okay, technology seems to be the space that we have to go to. It's innovate in technology or die. So that's the only positive thing about that. In terms of relying on outsiders, so what is this one thing that we push in the Caribbean for many years is the importance of education. So in Trinidad's perspective, we have had our universities for more than 100 years in different fields. We had, like for me, I had with free tertiary education, but that started after I finished my first degree. But like for free tertiary education for like 15, 20 years, something like that. So you have a highly educated population. The launch of this AI research center that only launched last month. The person in charge of it, of course, is a Trinidadian. A lot of the key people are Trinidadians. He actually leads the United Nations has some sort of innovation task force, and he's the person in charge of it. If I am the innovation minister, he should really be the AI minister. So we have quite a few people with the talent in AI and other spaces and in other Caribbean countries to really lead this ourselves and not be fully dependent. We just didn't have the will and the coordination to make it happen. I think it would be a good thing if you could get some of these foreign companies to set up the R&D centers in Trinidad and in the other parts of the Caribbean. That would really help us build our capacity to do R&D and do applied research and get understanding of markets. And that's going to happen with the AI Innovation Center. Because we know that we are in such dire straits. Like one of the persons who's on the scientific council, he actually is married to a Trinidadian. You can find Chinese everywhere. And he's a professor at Cambridge University with over 120 patents in the chip design space, and I'm actually going to might end up doing some other collaboration with him. So that is not going. I see all those things and the other external forces are really going to play in our favor now, but it never did in the past.
Super, thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting, I think, because every country has their comfort blanket, basically. And just as you were talking about the Dutch disease, literally at the same time, Owen had just written tulips in the chat there, and it's only when that comfort blanket is ripped away that the person, the country, whatever, just basically goes, oh crap, we're going to have to do something now. But while the comfort blanket is there, there's no need to. So when we all know that innovation, it happens when there's a stress point, whether it's a positive or a negative. Unless that pressure, that stress is there, then, well, why would we bother changing anything? Why would we? Because it's comfortable. And I've a couple of hands up, but do you think the God is a Trini mindset also provides a level of comfort that maybe other countries don't have? They go, oh, I'm sure it'll be okay, so we'll just leave it and it'll let it sort itself out.
Grand, Charlie, it'll be grand. It's the same Irish one that we have.
Well, yes, I guess everybody has a version of it. Yeah.
But I am not too worried in terms of our ability to pivot and persevere. Especially now that we know we are in crisis mode. Like the just to give a bit of history, in the steel plant that was created, that actually, of course, we have a history of slavery, and the British banned drumming because they realized these slaves were communicating via that medium. Even after we got emancipation, they still banned it. So, okay, they said, no problem, we can't drum. They innovated and they created another musical instrument called tambu bamboo, which is like bamboo that they could pound and still play music. Or they realized, oh, they're communicating with that from a distance, no problem. They banned it. I said, oh, no problem. We need another musical instrument to try and communicate. That's when they saw steel drums all over the place. Of course, we found oil in 1900. And that's when somebody said, well, let's make a musical instrument out of that. And I think that mindset and that innate quality that we have, we could apply it to artificial intelligence and agriculture and other spaces now. You know, so press us, and we definitely will make something happen.
We'll respond. Press us and we will respond. Thanks, Emerson. Alan, I think you were next.
Yeah, I'd love to just check in with you, Emerson, because we're talking about the comfort zone or lack of comfort zone sometimes. Now, everybody in the world, I think, at this point wakes up in the morning and goes, okay, what has Donald done now? Including in Ireland, where our economy is hugely dependent on foreign direct investment from the US and so on. But the difference between Ireland and Trinidad, I guess, is that there is a lot more ocean between us and currently aircraft carriers and whatever it is that you guys have uncomfortably close to your coastline, I'd imagine. I mean, is that in reality having an impact on the ground in terms of even just business confidence? I mean, to the extent that you can just give a general answer, not like a deeply political one. I don't know what anybody's views are on the call, but I'm just curious because I know, you know, that there are some places in the world where they can shrug it off and other places where it's a huge deal. So I'm just wondering how you guys are feeling about what's going on in your backyard.
I think this is where the God is a Trini, unfortunately, thing comes back in. A few years ago, there was a popular singer who said he had a song that says, "We jamming still." He says, "The city will burn down, but we jamming still." And it's carnival season. There's all of that excitement going on next door. From previous states of instability in Venezuela, we've had large amounts of Venezuelans in the country. And carnival season is swinging. It seems like it's unabated. So we're not too concerned, unfortunately. But the concern still comes back to Donald Trump stopping us doing that deal with Venezuela. And because our new prime minister is outwardly supporting Donald Trump, Venezuela has outright said they want nothing to do with Trinidad. You know, so that's the real source of the problems there.
Okay. Let's not get into the that agenda too deeply. I think probably safest not to.
Hi, sorry, somebody had their hand up before me, did they? Yeah, I'm just saying, really, lovely to hear your presentation and your refreshing approach. Worked in Cope and Rio de Janeiro myself. My first, I see a lot of what you're saying with the petrochemicals is true. My first job was looking at how to make fuel to power cars from alcohol made from all the sugar cane in the country. And obviously, you know, when you burn that, then it's carbon dioxide and water is the material. So that was a really simple kind of innovation process, and worked for about 18 months in the Caribbean, lots of 20 friends, all the rest of it, and worked in Dominica, I know well. But I think I loved what you're saying from the really, really basics of human nature. Humans will innovate to get to the next day, to provide nature's most basic essentials. But I think the challenges maybe are in a lot of developing parts of the world is how we actually capture that innovation, capture all those serendipitous interconnections to actually not so much economic benefit, but obviously you want the country to benefit from that, but to have real societal impact. And that's what I find I teach a lot of international students, how we can capture that energy of innovation in a way that enables them to have the tools to make ultimately their lives and the lives of others better.
Good point. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for sharing. Great points. My father's from Dominica, by the way.
I love it. It's beautiful. We went up, where they had like they filmed Pirates of the Caribbean and all there. So yes. It's nice there.
I hope you ate the mountain chicken.
Yeah, we had some mountain chicken, and in the other islands, of course, in parts as well, you have the goat stew. It's very good, Trinidadian goat's very good also, so But I think, just if you anything in terms of, your own teaching that you've done that are really good kind of tools, ways. Actually, I think I'm looking with the full term of teaching ahead of me of kind of action learning tools, and perhaps I'd love to continue this conversation with you another time. Any really good action learning tools for students who have had very little prior knowledge of innovation that kind of helps them get beyond the curiosity to gain some competence in innovation. Love to talk more about that.
Yeah, but I actually just started teaching innovation and entrepreneurship at one of the local universities, and 2 different faculties. But what I've realized, like when I asked a particular class at the beginning of the semester, how many of you are interested in innovation and entrepreneurship, they said none. Few of them did. By the end, they changed. So I realized because they didn't have access to many of the tools and frameworks and the process of transforming ideas into real world products and services, they said they were not interested. But when I supplied that to them, that the tune changed.
Good.
And of course, for me, I told them that innovation is not just an activity. The whole purpose of it is creating value and getting rich. And that opened everyone's eyes.
Getting rich, yeah. So that's it, because for basically, you know, one of my engineering professors used to say, you know, even fire, when man got 2 flints together, that's, you know, that's innovation. So you give man or woman the tools, and then they can do it. So it's the tools for innovation is what we're all interested. Sorry, Charlie.
I was going to say, I think that there's maybe a whole conversation we could get going on around the education of innovation rather than innovation in education as well. So maybe that's a session we can set up at some point and get an interesting conversation going on that. Conscious of time, Cristiano has had his hand up, so give you a chance.
We'll be fast, and it's very connected with Shirley's mentions, and you know, like, thank you, Emerson, for your presentation and sharing all this content. And during your slide, it's totally connected with this last theme, because my question was just about, you know, like when you showed your slide about all the stages of the startups and other stages of ideas and business development, how the actors interact with to foster innovation for education for innovation, you know, like for schools, and like it's something just for that comes just from some innovation hubs, or other actors, you know, like can help with, you know, through different ages in the education.
Okay, so even within the school systems, primary and secondary school systems, they have innovation activities, innovation entrepreneurial activities, but in my opinion, they are not following best practices. So like whether even tertiary, they focus on immediately having them focus on creating a business plan and not on creating a series of experiments to reduce the uncertainty and create evidence that these things could work. So that's why I still come back and tie back that we need some level of coordination and management to ensure that those things happen. So that's how those initiatives operate for now.
Thank you. Owen, you put your hand down earlier, so I want to give you a chance to get in there before we wrap.
Yeah, I mean, it was priceless and important, more important, bluntly, that we heard from Cristiano and Davey, Shirley and others before me. I would start talking about ISO, but I won't.
Yeah.
I do think Shirley touched on value capture. That sounded to me really, really priceless. And futures, you know, what futures are we aiming at? How can we leverage the things that we heard about, sun, sand, other things, S-curves. But I love the chocolate story. And I think, you know, sustainability and Shirley's comment about how you can leverage particular things like materials like that, or other things from Dominica. Value capture, fantastic. How they do it in Argentina strikes me as really valuable. Mm-hmm. What are they failing at, but where are they succeeding? IP, Alan's comment. So there's strands all over there. Let's not complicate it too much. A question I put back to Emerson is, having done the work and done the presentation, if you're forced to say in 10 seconds, if you had the magic wand question, which one would you pick up on?
Magic wand question.
Yeah, eat our own dog food.
I can't pick one. I appreciated all the questions that were asked.
Or what's going to be more of clarity, what's going to be, you know, you've outlined multiple challenges. What's one that you can dig into and really look to influence? And likewise, how can we help you? Because if there's something that's going to move a needle and you are the unofficial Minister of Innovation, what would you do and how can we help you?
But the one thing that I'm advocating for again and again is the formation of, well, two things actually, I would say. The creation of a parliamentary or cabinet committee for science, technology, innovation, and research. I call these two committees to ensure that on the ministerial level, they are discussing it and have that governance. Because without that, we will have just activities going on and we have no coordination. And once that happens, then we can have a national innovation agency. Actually, have another article that I'm drafting where I created an image of how it would look. But I don't want to share I want to publish it in another space first and share it there. But that's the first thing, that high level engagement to the entire country, know that we have that leadership commitment for innovation.
Yeah, and investment.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, thank you. I think that's timing wise, that's pretty much bringing us to the hour. Thank you, Emerson, so much for that. I know we've been on these calls and we've chatted a lot in the past, but to really give you the space, give you the stage so you can share the real experiences that you're facing. And they're all different to the experiences that we're facing, but they're all familiar as well. And I think that's the common thread that we have that we can hook into, as Catherine says, to help each other out as best we can. There was a mention just at the end there towards value creation. I see that ISO are doing some seminar on value creation. I've no idea what it is, but if it is, Owen has, clearly. Is it worth trying to see if it's worth sharing or not?
No, not today.
Okay. Even if we've come across anything, we will share it, obviously. But yeah, just to say thank you to everybody for coming along today. Emerson, thank you for sharing. We know that you have energy because of all your work with personally and with your government and with the standards and with ISPIM, and you're educating people, policy making, and you read more books than the rest of us put together, from what you said a few calls ago as well. And you have the stamina to do 2 months of partying, ended with 2 really intensive days of partying. It's just mind-blowing. I couldn't do the end bit, never mind the 2 months running into it. So you have our admiration on so many fronts. So just on behalf of everybody, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, and if I may say, just to touch on Catherine's question in terms of how you can help me, you already helped me just being a member of this community and being a place where I can ask questions and sometimes brainstorm with you. That is the help that you have been providing unofficially, and I hope you'll continue welcoming me so I could then impact my country with the inspiration that you provide.
Right. Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, everybody, have a great weekend. Enjoy your long weekend, Emerson. Enjoy the sun.
Yeah, party on.
And we'll catch up with you soon. All right, take care, everyone.
Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.